Let's start it again. So, today we are going to start with fundamental duties and some other important aspects of rights and issues. If you talk about this, or if you see this whole section of rights and issues in India, you will see that every year in prelims examination we see 2 to 3 questions, and that is why this whole theme of rights and issues becomes important for us. Thank you, Pradeep, for confirming. Chalo, all perfect, got the message. Let's start now. So today we are going to see the questions associated with fundamental duties and some other important aspects of rights and issues in India. Let us start with the first question. I hope you guys have read this question already, but I have not received a single answer. I just received the messages of not audible, not audible. Let's come back to the question. Consider the following statements: right to education, right to equal access to public services, right to food. Which of the above are human rights under Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Now the point is, when you talk about the Constitution of India, the Constitution of India was completed in 1949, November 1949, and this Universal Declaration of Human Rights came into existence even before this phase. So we see this, if you see this concept, we saw this Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, and India was a signatory of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So majority of the things which we see in Universal Declaration of Human Rights can be seen in the Constitution of India also, especially in the section of fundamental rights and the associated concepts. So if you see this right to education, we have this in Universal Declaration of human rights. Right to equal access to public services, we have this. Right to food, we have this. If you see, if you go at the next level, then I would also like to show you some additional concepts. Like if you talk about Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you can see that these 30 declarations are there under this Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. If you see the questions associated with UPSC, I hope it's not, I know it's not visible to all of us, but if you see this, on December 10, 1948, the General Assembly adopted and proclaimed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. India was a signatory of this, and on a regular basis, we have been seeing questions from this section. So I would also request you people that please have a view over this. I will share this document with after this session also. So the point is, you just need to have a reading of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights and try to understand the concepts which are there in the Constitution of India also. There have been various questions in examination from this Universal Declaration of Human Rights and relating it with the fundamental rights, DPSPs and other concepts. I'll just show some more questions. Let's come back. Okay. Let's see some more questions. So let's come back to the next question. The answer is obviously D of that previous question. All of you answered it correctly. Under the Constitution of India, which one of the following is not a fundamental duty? Again, the same thing. Just like we did with reference to Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we also need to have this clarity in mind that what are the fundamental duties, and not only about fundamental duties. From Article 12 to Article 51, if you move through the system of 12 to 51, you will see that there have been various questions associated with articles of the Constitution also, and what are the ingredients of this article. So have a view over this. If you talk about this fundamental duties, you can see this fundamental duties also in this very image. Just have a view over these fundamental duties, which was added by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. The point is, the original Constitution of India did not have any provision associated with fundamental duties, but after recommendations by a committee, can anybody let me know the name of committee which recommended for this fundamental duties? We came up with these fundamental duties. Initially there were 10 fundamental duties, but one more fundamental duty was added, and presently we have 11 fundamental duties. So if you come back to this question, the first question, under the Constitution of India, under the Constitution of India, which one of the following is not a fundamental duty? The answer would obviously be A, that is to vote in public elections. To vote in public elections is not a fundamental duty. However, rest of the options, that is B, C and D, these are fundamental duties. Let's move to the next question. Consider the following. We have seen this question already. This question. With reference to consumers' rights, privileges under the provisions of law in India, which of the following statements are correct? A very interesting question, because we generally don't cover these types of news. The point is, when you are seeing something in current affairs and current issues, just try to see how that particular issue is happening and what are the legal options for that. Just see that what do we find in the Constitution of India with reference to that. If you don't have that thing in Constitution of India, then just see that do we have any statutory backup of that very provision. If you don't find any statutory backup, then move to the next level and just see that do we have any other executive orders associated with this. Without these things, nothing can happen. So whenever you are seeing any issue, just try to relate that issue with reference to the options which we have, that is Constitution, statutory backup and legal backup, executive orders. If you see this, consumers are empowered to take sample for food testings. Second option, when a consumer files a complaint in any consumer forum, no fee is required to be paid. Third option, in case of death of a consumer, his/her legal heir can file a complaint in the consumer forum on his/her behalf. The point is, if you see this question, the question may look a bit tough, but it's a very simple question. Just see this. Even if you don't know some of the answers, then also you can answer this question very easily. Like, see the second statement. When a consumer files a complaint in any consumer forum, no fee is required. If you see this statement is incorrect, because we have to pay certain fee. And if you see this, we have to pay certain fee, then automatically second statement is incorrect. If you make this second statement incorrect, then this option goes off and this option is also over. Now we have only two options, that is either A or C. This automatically makes the first statement as correct. So we have to see that is third statement correct or not correct. If you go through this third statement is also correct, that is in case of death of a consumer, his/her legal heir can file a complaint in the consumer forum on his/her behalf. It's not like if a person is dead now, then the complaint cannot be filed. So the answer would be C, that is 1 and 3 only. 1 and 3 only. Second statement is incorrect. Anustan, Swaran Singh Committee, Akansha Sahu. Exactly, dear, it was Swaran Singh Committee. I have not received a single correct answer of this question. Chalo, koi nahi. Let's come back to the next question. Which of the following are among the fundamental duties of citizens laid down in the Indian Constitution? The point is, if you see these types of questions can only be answered if we have the exact idea or if we have seen the fundamental duties. That is why I showed that image, and I also specified that you need to have an idea of fundamental duties in the Constitution of India, that is in Part 4A, Article 51, capital A, which was added on the recommendations of Swaran Singh Committee through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. So if you see this, then just see this question. To preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture, to protect the weaker sections from social injustice, to develop the scientific temper and spirit of inquiry, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. If you see this question, you have to make it very clear that if you see this, the second option, that is to protect the weaker sections from social injustice, is incorrect. So if the second statement, that is to protect the weaker sections from social injustice, is incorrect, then automatically all the options with 2 as correct becomes incorrect, and the answer would obviously be A. The point is, whenever you see questions with multiple statements, always understand this. Okay, the questions with multiple statement is always simple. You just need to understand that question. You just need to read that question multiple number of times. If you see this question, if you are able to eliminate this second option, you will automatically come to the conclusion. The demand of the question is which of the following are fundamental duties? So if you talk about fundamental duties, if you remember those 11 fundamental duties, you will automatically be able to answer. You just need to remove this option second and the answer would be clear. That is C. Sakshi, Aditya, C. Akansha, C. Exactly C. Let's move to the next question. Which of the following statements are true of the fundamental duties of Indian citizen? Again, a question on fundamental duties. Now, if you see these fundamental duties, then a question automatically comes into mind that is fundamental duty legally enforceable? What are the legislative effects of these fundamental duties and what are the legal duties associated with this? If you see this question, see the first statement. A legislative process has been provided to enforce these duties. There is nothing as such. There is no such legislative process which has provided for enforcing these fundamental duties. So the first statement is incorrect. If you see the second statement, they are correlative with legal duties. Now, if you see this statement, correlative with legal duties, there is nothing as such where we can see that they are related to fundamental duties. So the relationship between fundamental duties and legal duties is not at all clear. If the relationship between these two is not clear, then how are we going to see this as correct statement? Statement 1 is automatically incorrect. So we don't have this option. We don't have this option. Again, if you come to this second option, then in the case of this second option also, you will see that there is no relationship between this legal duties and fundamental duties. So if there is no relationship between legal duties and fundamental duties, then statement 2 is also incorrect. So the answer would be D, that is neither 1 nor 2. The point is, we have to see that what are the legalities associated with fundamental duties, and this is not only applicable to fundamental duties, but this is also applicable to the DPSPs. This is also applicable to the fundamental rights. That is why when we cover these sections, when I am specifying this section again and again, I am not specifying it as fundamental duty only. I am not specifying it as DPSPs only. I am not specifying it as fundamental rights only. I am specifying it as a whole theme of rights and issues. So whenever we see these types of questions, it is not a question of a single segment. It is a question of this whole section of rights and issues. And in this rights and issues, this concept of fundamental duties will also come. Let's see one more question. Again, a question on Universal Declaration on Human Rights. I think this question came in the last year's prelims examination. So just see this question. Other than the fundamental rights, which of the following parts of the Constitution of India reflects the principles and provides sorry, let me come on it again. Other than the fundamental rights, which of the following parts of the Constitution of India reflects the principles and provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Now, if you talk about this concept of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, again, we saw this question earlier also, and we are seeing the same question again. So this is why we keep on discussing this previous year questions of UPSC, because on a regular basis, we have been seeing that UPSC keeps on repeating the questions, and not really the questions, but the themes of the questions keep on coming again and again. We saw this very thing in the case of DPSPs also. We saw the same thing in the case of fundamental rights also. So if you see this question, if you talk about the provisions associated with Universal Declaration of Human Rights, so this Universal Declaration of Human Rights is automatically here in the case of fundamental rights. I specified this also. Why? Because this Constitution of India came into effect after this Declaration of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and India was a signatory of this. So it is specified in fundamental rights. Apart from this fundamental rights, it is also specified in preamble to the Constitution of India. And if you have this in preamble, then you will automatically have this in DPSPs also. Because if you see, various provisions of this preamble various provisions of this preamble can be seen in DPSP, like the provisions of economic justice, like the provision of social justice, like the like everything associated with the economic democracy and social democracy can be seen in this section of DPSP, and it is also related to these fundamental duties. So the answer would obviously be D, that is 1, 2 and 3. Whenever we are talking about this concept of rights and issues and these fundamental duties and associated concepts, then we need to have this idea of Universal Declaration of Human Rights also. So if you talk about this concept of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, if you see this image properly, there are 30 rights which have been specified in this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And if you see this, we can find the impact of these declarations on the Constitution of India. We can find it not only in the Constitution of India, but also in the Constitution of India. Along with this, we can find these things in its inheritance in fundamental rights. Along with this concept of fundamental rights, we can also see them in DPSP. We can also see them in fundamental duties. We can obviously see them in preamble to the Constitution of India also. And not only this, in various other statutory provisions, we can see the inheritance of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If you talk about these human rights, I cannot explain all these here. Like, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So, do we have this concept of universal brotherhood in the Constitution of India? We keep on saying from our school days, all Indians are my brothers and their sisters, and so on. So, these concepts, how do we see these concepts? We have to understand this very clearly. In the same manner, if you talk about this, then we need to give emphasis on these fundamental duties also, all the 11 fundamental duties. And this is what makes this whole section of rights and duties important for us. This is all we have. Again, if you talk about this section, then we also need to understand one additional concept associated with this, that is, if you see the fundamental duties, just see which amendment added which duty in the section, in this part 4A of the Constitution of India, that is Article 51 capital A. This is all we have for the day. If there's any doubt, please let me know. Fraternity, preamble, DPSP, this is retracted. So, we are ending the session here only. Tomorrow, we will meet again at the same time without any technical issues, hopefully. And we will see some other concepts of polity. In the next 2 days, we will be seeing some of the concepts of polity. Till then, all of you, take care, have a good day, and bye-bye.